Good evening and welcome to Poland Daily. I'm Nicholas Richardson and this is the news. Polish President Andrzej Duda and Interior and Administration Minister Mariusz Kamiński took part in a press conference in the village of Norewka near the border with Belarus today. They reviewed the security situation on the ground and received information on the operation of the border barrier.
I wish to emphasize the extraordinary devotion to duty of the border guard officers, the police officers who support them, and our soldiers. This service they are performing here on the Polish-Belarusian border is indeed invaluable at the moment. Ladies and gentlemen, it is difficult to imagine the scale of the danger that would descend on Poland if this service were not carried out here. I will not mention the lack of control, in fact, over the penetration of the border, because please be aware that if the Belarusian service supports and assists in crossing the border, then if this increased service of ours and these safeguards were not there, if there were not this generosity of border guard officers, soldiers and policemen, then we would indeed have no control over the border. There has been a lot of discussion recently, attacks on border guard officers in connection with their service, attacks on these investment projects that are being made on this border, on the way this border is protected. There will be an opportunity for all of us Poles to have our say on this issue in a referendum to be held this Sunday.
Nasza granica wschodnia.
Our eastern border is the best guarded external border of the European Union. I have no doubt about that. And our border guards are among the best, among the most modernly equipped, and among the strongest border formations in all of Europe. This is happening, as the President said, thanks in part to the Modernisation Act, which was passed by Parliament at the request of the Polish government and signed by the President. Thanks to this Modernisation Act, from 2022 to 2025, the Polish border guard will receive 1,400 million zloty for the purchase of additional modern equipment. This year alone, we have bought several hundred well-equipped off-road vehicles, patrol vehicles, and specialised vehicles for our officers. Today, one of the most modern patrol vessels on the Baltic starts its service.
President Andrzej Duda and Minister of Culture and National Heritage Piotr Gliński took part in the ceremony of announcing the results of the architectural and urban planning competition for the architectural concept for the reconstruction of the Saski Palace, the Brühl Palace and townhouses on Królewska Street in Warsaw. The winner of the competition for the reconstruction of the Saski Palace in Warsaw was the WXCA Group.
The idea that the Saski Palace, the Brühl Palace and the Królewska Street apartments should be rebuilt is not new. The idea came back with full force at the time when Professor Lech Kaczyński was president of Warsaw and wanted to restore these buildings to Warsaw. He had such great ambition then, as you know. Preparatory work began then for the first time. The foundations of the Saski Palace were uncovered and archaeological research was conducted. Later, for various reasons, I won't return to this work was abandoned. The site was secured and left for later.
Zaczęły się wtedy po raz pierwszy odsłonięto fundamenty.
Odbudujemy Pałac Saski takim, jaki był w 1939.
We will rebuild the Saxon Palace as it was in 1939, an architectural symbol of the city, along with that iconic colonnade seen in 1,000 pre-war photos and films. A colonnade whose arcades protect the tomb of the unknown soldier. While we respect its modern form full of tragedy, we also recall its original form, and that was intended by its creators to be triumphant and joyful. So not a tomb, but a monument of glory with an architectural structure.
I radosny. A więc nie grobowiec, lecz monument chwały o konstrukcji architektonicznej.
The winner of the architectural competition for the reconstruction of the Saski Palace in Warsaw is WXCA Group Studio. The reconstruction is to involve the Saski Palace, the Brühl Palace, but also the apartments on Królewska Street in Warsaw. The company's website shows it has already a considerable experience in similar projects. Among other things, it created the Polish Pavilion for the Expo 2020 World Exhibition in Dubai. The studio was also responsible for the concept for the construction of Plac Pięć-Rogów in Warsaw, as well as for the revitalization.
Thursday is the sixth day of Operation Iron Swords, targeting Palestinian Hamas terrorists. I am in Israel today to make one thing clear. The United States stands with Israel and its people, and we will always firmly stand against terrorism, United States Secretary of State Antony Blinken declared after landing in Israel.
The number of innocent lives claimed by Hamas's heinous attacks continues to rise. Among those, we now know that at least 25 American citizens were killed. We join families in Israel, in the United States, around the world, in mourning their immeasurable loss. As Israel's defense needs evolve, we will work with Congress to make sure that they're met. And I can tell you, there is overwhelming bipartisan support in our Congress for Israel's security. We've deployed the world's largest aircraft carrier to the Eastern Mediterranean. We bolstered the presence of U.S. fighter aircraft in the region. We're providing other support as well. We continue working closely with Israel to secure the release of the men, women, children, elderly people taken hostage by Hamas.
Israel continues retaliatory airstrikes on the Gaza Strip for a deadly attack by Hamas militants. The Palestinian enclave, home to nearly 2.5 million people, is completely blockaded. Water and electricity have also been cut off. A representative of the World Food Programme described the dire situation in the Gaza Strip, which is facing a humanitarian crisis after Israel said there would be no exceptions to the siege of Gaza until all the hostages are released.
We're very worried about how this will evolve over time, particularly if the humanitarian situation is not addressed. The people that are seeking shelter and striving to survive in this environment are going to get only in worse and worse situations as time goes on. And I think our concern is that unless we're able to access those communities, the people that are in need, the civilian population, there's going to be an extreme situation for them, both in terms of having the food to survive. The immediate response from WFP is to provide what we call ready-to-eat food. So we're providing tinned food for communities that are in shelters, in the schools where they're sheltering, and bread. We're providing that as much as we can to help people survive this crisis. In addition, we're providing cash through mobile means that people can redeem at shops. We have over 300 shops in the area that people can go to use that cash to buy goods. And we've seen with distributions most recently that a large number of people are actually able to use that cash and get food that they need to survive. But as time goes on, as I said earlier, those stocks are going to diminish with no access at the moment possible to bring in any resupply into the area.
NATO defence ministers kicked off a second day of discussions in Brussels on Thursday, with the Russian invasion of Ukraine and the latest bout of conflict in Israel at the forefront of the talks.
The alliance said it was confident that members of the military alliance would continue to support Ukraine as it was in their own security interests.
First of all, I just wanted to say that if Putin thinks we're going to be in any way distracted by what's now happening, the horrendous scenes from Israel, is completely wrong. 50 nations turned up yesterday to say how we're going to help with Ukraine, how that help is going to be ongoing, and I was delighted that President Zelensky came yesterday.
Defence ministers at NATO's Brussels headquarters watched stunned as their Israeli counterpart, Yoav Gallant, on Thursday showed them shocking and horrific video from the Hamas attack on Israeli civilians, the alliance's head Jens Stoltenberg said. Stoltenberg reiterated that although Israel had the right to defend itself, NATO expected its response to the Hamas attack to be proportionate.
The main message was that it just confirmed the brutality of the attacks, how innocent civilians, young people were killed, and of course it makes a strong impact on all of us when we see the pictures and the video describing the consequences of this horrific attack against Israel. As this conflict evolves, it is important to protect civilians, and this was also clearly expressed by allies. There are rules of war, there are the requests for proportionality, and this was highlighted by many allies.
The United States has been rushing air defences and munitions to Israel to help bolster its fight against Palestinian militant group Hamas in the wake of Hamas's devastating attacks on Israel over the weekend.
In terms of conditions that we would place on the security assistance that we're providing to Israel, we've not placed any conditions on the provision of this equipment. This is a professional military led by professional leadership, and we would hope and expect that they would do the right things in the prosecution of their campaign, and we will make sure that we will leave it to them to define what their operations are going to look like. But again, we have no reason to believe that they would do anything different.
Israel has vowed to annihilate the Hamas movement that rules Gaza in retribution for the deadliest attack on Jewish civilians since the Holocaust, when hundreds of militants breached the boundary fence and stormed nearby Israeli communities on Saturday. The full scale of the killings has emerged since Israeli forces reclaimed control of the towns and kibbutzes, finding homes strewn with bodies. They say they found women who had been raped and killed and children who were shot and burned. Meanwhile, NATO Secretary General Jens Stoltenberg also urged members to continue efforts in defence investment. He reiterated that 11 member states states now spend at least 2% of their national GDP on defence. And I expect this number will rise substantially next year, he said. Swedish Defence Minister Pål Jonson was also invited to the meeting, although the Scandinavian country is still waiting to become an official member. In March 2023, Sweden applied to join NATO, but its bid has not yet been ratified by member states Turkey and Hungary.
That's the news. Thank you for watching. Stay with us for the weather, Poland Daily Business and more programmes. But from me, it's have a good night and a better tomorrow.